Putin and his regime are totally barbaric. And I have to say, the Russian people supporting and allowing their government to continue like this, I put in exactly the same category, a barbaric nation committing all sorts of evils against the people of Ukraine. In terms of what the West can actually do, I mean, I think we are essentially now at capacity. The only next step that we can undertake is to deploy troops, ships and aircraft in the Ukraine, and there's no appetite amongst Western leaders to do that. And so, unfortunately, I think until the Russians and the Ukrainians either come to some sort of negotiation, which should include the full withdrawal of Russian troops, this war is going to go on for a long time.
Yes, I fear that you may be right there. Let's talk about matters at home, really, because we've got strikes all over the place, which we'll get to in a moment. But I was reading your piece this morning that you wrote for Reaction Life, and Britain needs a plan for growth. Because one of the things that puzzles me is why we've been talking now for weeks and weeks and weeks about the growing cost of everything, the cost of living increase, the cost of living crisis, the crisis in fuel prices, everything's going up. People are going on strike supposedly because they can't afford the inflationary pay rises. But nothing's actually being done by the government. I know they keep trotting out this mantra that, well, we're giving billions and billions of pounds away to people. Well, they are, but that's not the same thing, is it?
No, it's not. And essentially at the moment, Mike, this country is in a really perilous position. We've got zero growth forecast for next year. We've got rising inflation. We've got, as you say, a summer of industrial action forecast. And there's no plan to get this country growing. We hear a lot from the government about talking about how we're going to use our Brexit freedoms to diverge and grow the economy. Well, we've heard that for the last few years and nothing's happened. The government claimed to be a low tax government, but all they seem to be doing is raising taxes. And I think the Prime Minister has said that he's not going to bring forward a tax cut earlier this year. And the other key element of
it's
our
a bit like me claiming to be the greatest mountaineer of all time, isn't it? Because I'm not.
Well, you're not,
and neither are they. The party of low taxation. They simply aren't. I don't know why they keep saying it.
Well, it's sort of like if you say something that's not true often enough, it eventually becomes true. But unfortunately, high taxation is a massive barrier to growth. The more money the government has, the less money you, I, and other consumers have to spend and to grow our economy. And so, frankly, all the while the government keeps raising taxes, we're not going to get the growth we need. And importantly as well, and I try and make this point whenever I can, manufacturing in this country does not get anywhere near the attention it deserves. Yet the highest productivity gains can be found in manufacturing. If you look at the fastest growing economies in the world, they have huge manufacturing sectors. And if we had a government that gave that sector particular attention, our economy would grow much more rapidly.
Well, one of the interesting things that we've all discovered about Ukraine is it's massive in manufacturing, that they've been manufacturing things that we didn't even know we needed until we realised that we couldn't get them anymore. Cars, for example. I mean, one of the reasons you can't get a new car at the moment is because an awful lot of particularly the German car manufacturers have factories in Ukraine where they put together bits and pieces that go inside the car, like sort of, superconductors and whatever it is that they use for the computer systems and all of that. They manufacture them all in Ukraine. And at the moment, obviously, that manufacture has ground to a halt. So that is affecting the sale of new cars. So while you might say, oh, well, rich people can't get another car. No, it means that the people that sell the cars can't make any money because they work on commission. So it's like a vicious circle.
It is indeed, and we've allowed over, under successive Conservative and Labour governments, and indeed under the coalition, our manufacturing sector to deplete. And as a result, we are where we are now, extremely low growth, dependent largely on other countries for most of our key goods, like you mentioned there, cars, and there are plenty of other things we import because we can't make them here. And I know the green lobbies say, well, we shouldn't be making more here because of carbon emissions. Well, I'd rather us make more here to higher standards than bring things in from around the world which are more damaging for the planet. So I think there's a huge case to be made on manufacturing, regulation and taxation. And, for God's sake, Boris, get on with it and do it.
But this is the thing. I mean, the Times this morning has got a piece by their political editor, Stephen Swinford, saying that Boris will reject Tory demands for an early tax cut. So that's not happening. But it surely must be sort of, you know, duty bound as a man who says he wants to help people through this crisis, that he needs to be seen to be making some kind of cut at least. I mean, there's some suggestion today, we're talking to Howard Cox about it later, that there may well be a cut coming in fuel duty, but if it's another 5p cut, they might as well not bother.
Well, if I was Chancellor of the Exchequer, I would have an emergency budget right now. I wouldn't bother with 5p off fuel duty. I'd go for 50p, give a real cut so people can feel the actual benefit. I'd abolish the national insurance increases, and I'd slash VAT on energy and fuel to give a real stimulus to people, because right now, you must see this as well as I do, everyone I know and speak to is really feeling the pinch. Even people I know on very good incomes are starting to go, oh dear, petrol's a bit expensive this week, isn't it?
There's no question. I mean, it's incredible. And I think also it would be wise, I would have thought, for some companies and some, you know, retailers to actually take a bit of a look at themselves, because it seems to me that an awful lot of them are just ratcheting up prices because they can, because they think, oh, the public's in the same mood as they were yesterday, which is that they're not surprised anymore when everything's gone up. So if you just put another 50p on what used to be £2, you know, they'll pay £2.50. It's not a problem.
Well, the disparity between some of the state petrol and fuel stations around the country, I think, really does need to be investigated by someone. I've got no objection to businesses making a profit, but when there are such huge differences between diesel and petrol at different stations that are less than a mile apart, one has to really start to wonder what's going on there.
Yeah.
But our fundamental problem at the moment, on whether it's industrial action that's taking place or that's proposed to take place, inflation, and the position on tax, is because we haven't got a plan for growth. We hear our politicians, you know, rowing with each other over who had a pint and who had a party and who had a curry or whatever it was. Frankly, it's boring, and we need to move on and focus on how do we get our economy growing, how do we ensure that Britain stays in the top 10 economies in the world and becomes the largest economy in Europe. That should be our objective.